The first thing I noticed was the smell. A cloying, sickly, sweet floral scent mixed with something else. Damp earth and old wood. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, glued shut. I tried to move my arms, to stretch, but they hit something hard and unyielding just inches away. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through me. Where was I? My fingers scrabbled against a smooth, satiny fabric lining a rough, splintery surface. A box. I was in a box. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence. I forced my eyes open, but it made no difference. Absolute, impenetrable darkness pressed in on me from all sides. I took a gasping breath, and the air was stale, thin. Coffin. The words slammed into my consciousness like a physical blow. I was in a coffin, but that couldn't be right. I was alive. I could feel the frantic pulse in my throat, the burn in my lungs, the terror coiling in my gut. Then a sound, muffled, distant, but unmistakable, weeping. A woman's sob, raw and heartbroken. It sounded like my wife, Clara. And then a man's voice, low and somber, began to speak. A eulogy, my eulogy. The words were a jumbled mess, filtering through the thick wood. A devoted husband, a cherished friend, taken too soon. I screamed, a raw, desperate sound that tore at my throat. I thrashed, beating my fists against the lid above me. I'm here. I'm alive. Let me out. My voice was swallowed by the enclosed space, a pathetic, muffled thudding against the wood. Surely they could hear me. Surely someone would come. The eulogy paused. Silence. My heart leaped with a desperate, fragile hope. They heard me. They were coming to get me. But the silence stretched thick with a tension that was somehow worse than the weeping. And then a soft chuckle. It was low, barely audible through the layers of wood and earth, but it was there. It was followed by another and another. Not the sounds of shock or relief, not the frantic scrabbling of rescue. It was amusement. They were laughing. The muffled weeping had stopped, replaced by this quiet, chilling mirth. A cold dread, far worse than the initial panic, washed over me. They knew I was in here, alive, and they weren't letting me out. The man's voice started again, but the somber tone was gone. It was lighter now, almost conversational. I couldn't make out the words, but the cadence was all wrong for a funeral. It sounded like they were just chatting. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible. A mistake, some kind of cruel, elaborate prank. But Clara's sobs had been real. I knew her cry better than my own heartbeat, and the laughter, that was real too. A memory surfaced, hazy and indistinct, the night before. Clara had made me a special tea. To help you sleep, she'd said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I remembered a strange, bitter aftertaste, and then nothing. I pushed against the lid with all my might, my shoulders screaming in protest. It didn't budge, not an inch. It felt secured, screwed shut, nailed down. This coffin was never meant to be opened. My desperate shouts turned into whimpers. The air was getting thicker, warmer. Each breath was a struggle, a fight for a diminishing resource. Outside, the casual chatter continued. I could hear footsteps moving away, the sound of shoes on gravel. They were leaving. They were leaving me here. No, please, I screamed, my voice cracking. Don't leave me, Clara. The sounds faded. The weeping, the laughter, the footsteps. All of it receded into a silence that was now truly absolute. Hours bled into what felt like days. The stale air was a thick blanket, my lungs burning with every shallow gasp. I drifted in and out of consciousness, plagued by nightmares that were indistinguishable from my waking reality. In my clearer moments, I tried to piece it together. Why? What had I done? Was it money? Was there someone else? The questions were a torturous loop with no answers. The image of Clara's face haunted me. Her smile, the way she'd look at me, or the way she used to. When had it changed? When did that warmth curdle into this cold, calculated cruelty? I thought of our life together, our shared jokes, our future plans. It was all a lie, a performance, and this was the final act. I thought I heard something, a faint scratching sound, not from above, but from the side of the coffin. At first, I dismissed it as my oxygen-starved mind playing tricks on me, but it grew louder, more insistent. Scratch, scratch. It was rhythmic, deliberate. It wasn't the sound of a rescue. It was the sound of something trying to get in. A new, primal terror seized me. I pressed myself against the far side of the coffin, away from the noise. The scratching intensified, accompanied now by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the wood. It sounded hungry. The wood splintered. A thin crack of darkness, darker than the pitch-black I was in, appeared near my feet. The smell hit me then, overpowering the cloying sweetness of the flowers. The smell of decay, of damp soil and things long dead. The scratching stopped. Through the crack, I saw something. A pale, long-fingered hand, caked in dirt, slid through the opening. It wasn't human, not anymore. The fingers twitched, feeling their way through the darkness, reaching for me. I realized then the final horror of my situation. They hadn't just buried me alive. They knew what else was down here in the dark. This wasn't just a grave. It was a feeding trough. The coffin was never meant to keep me in. It was meant to keep me still until dinner was served. My last ragged scream was not for help. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated terror as the fingers closed around my ankle. The last thing I heard wasn't my own voice, but that same soft, muffled laughter from above, echoing down through the earth.